It's so lovely to see you, Pernilla. I really appreciate you being on this podcast of mine, being in this conversation of mine. The heart of it is love, the invitation of love, power of love, and our experience of love, how love moves in and through our lives. And I know you have much to say about the subject. I've heard you speak much about the subject. And more than that, I feel like we have had such an exchange of love already in our short time of knowing each other. Where might you like to start?
Well, thank you, first of all, for having me on. And yes, talking about love is kind of, I don't know if there's anything really more important. And I'm not sure if most people or most of us really know what it means, right? We're kind of
Yeah.
striving to become more loving and to bring more love to the world, which is so beautiful. And what I have seen in my own practice, in my own life, that many people exclude themselves. And I think that's where I stepped in many years ago when I realized that self love was a big missing piece in most people's lives. And they didn't even know what it meant. They didn't know how to do that. It became some kind of a concept, with massages and things like that all included in it, absolutely. But there's always been a deeper part, which has been really learning to listen to, the core of our being, where life actually comes from. And let's see, how am I going to say that? It's like we have just built all these layers of protection, resistance, doubt. And it's hard for that natural flow to flow through in and as our life and as the fulfillment, which is just part of our being. It's just, it
Yeah.
can't really be separate from any of that except when we put these barriers in front of them. And I want to just mention one of my favorite quotes from Rumi, if I can remember it now, is your task is not to seek for love, but to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And when I started my practice years ago, it was just the main thing, we need to find how we are preventing ourselves to be part of that love that is all there is.
That's all there is. Yeah. And many people proclaim that. Many churches proclaim that God is love. We say it
Yeah.
as if we know what it means.
Yeah.
Um, but we also simultaneously, so many of us exist with all these unconscious barriers. What was that like for you to start to discover yourself as love?
Quite a story, actually. I don't want to go into the
Yeah,
thing, but
sure.
it started out that in a very mysterious way,
Mhm.
book was brought to my attention by somebody I had never met from New Zealand. This book came to me and he suggested that I read it. So this is when I still lived in Denmark. So I thought, well, since it's coming in such a weird way, so I went to the library in my little town and they didn't have it, but I put in a note, to see if they could find it for me. And then I didn't hear anything for a while. Then suddenly I got a note from the library that says the book has arrived from Norway. It's a different country,
Wow.
So I went and picked it up, and the book was called Practicing the Presence by Joel Goldsmith. And it's kind of an offshoot of Practicing the Presence by Brother Lawrence. So that book was suddenly in my hands, and I started reading it, and it didn't do much for me, to be honest with you.
Mm.
But because it was such an ordeal to get it, I just made a Xerox copy of it, put it in my shelf, and returned the book. And then about maybe 6 or 12 months later, something in me was just pulled to pull out that copy, and I started reading it. And it totally, totally changed my life. After a while, I started meditating the way Joel Goldsmith suggested it. And
Mhm.
one of the, he was a Christian mystic. So
Yeah.
a lot of the quotes that he meditated on were some that I took on because I had tried to read the Bible, but it was just too many words. Didn't make sense to me. But the way he
Mhm.
presented it, it made total sense to really take it in
Mhm.
and let it come alive. So one day after I was meditating on this sentence, I and my Father are one, which is what Joel suggested, and everything opened up in a way
Mm.
you will only understand if you've had a similar experience like that. And I remember I mean, the energy just flooded in, and I was on my knees. I remember the image like next to my couch, and I said, please don't ever let me stray away from you again. And then I was in this experience, I would say for a couple of months or so, 1 or 2 months,
Mhm.
where it's kind of was a little blurry. And I was just living in this state of love. Everything was love. I loved everyone. I loved all of myself. It was so
Mhm.
safe.
Mhm.
And then I was out in my favorite cafe one day having my cappuccino, and then there was this man who came over to me and asked if he could sit and drink his coffee. And I had one of Joel's books. It was a different one. I've gotten a few of his books by then, and that changed my whole life. He took over my life. He was very manipulative, and he knew all the buttons inside of me. Well, he didn't know them, but he pushed all the buttons of self-doubt, of lack of self. So everything got stirred up, and he knew the Bible inside out. So it was a very, very, very confusing time for me. I literally went from heaven into the deepest hell for 5 months, where he took over my life. It was quite
Mhm.
so I didn't know what was going. I just kept holding on to, that grace is my sufficiency. I mean, I live by these Joel quotes, and they
Mhm.
told me to stay here, but it didn't help the situation until I finally got a little back to my senses and
Mhm.
got him out of my home because he had moved in and taken over everything. And then I moved to America to be with a student of Joel's when he was still alive. So then I came,
Mhm.
and then everything, of course, changed. But to make the point is that I had to learn to love all the parts in myself. And what happened at that cafe was that he said, he asked me, I need a place to stay tonight. Can I stay at your place? And the first thing was like, no. Right. The original, like, no. And then he talked me into saying yes. And later I really had to go back and look at what happened there and why did I get myself into this. And this is
Mhm.
such a common thing for women, right? That we don't listen to that organic no. And that was the beginning of my journey to self learning to honor who we are, connect with our divinity, and live from there and really trust that. It's just trusting that divine impulse or that flow, call it whatever we want. And that's challenging. Yeah.
I I love the story, and I wonder if this is partly why our paths have crossed, because I had such a similar experience of the flow of love, of having mine didn't last for several months, it was more like a week, but it was enough for me to know that this was really, really good and really, really real, and I wanted to come back to it. I wanted to find a way to live from there. And there's some kind of integration process. It's almost like it came as a grace, but there's still some vulnerability in it. So it's interesting that you had that experience with that man in that kind of open state, because it had come to you, had been given to you, but you didn't really yet know all the layers involved. Yeah, and that trust, love sometimes is equated with everything is fine and everything is welcome. But there's actually a dimension of love that actually wants you to tell the truth and wants you to know what is true. And so, how might you speak to that mix of love and truth? Sounds like that was a big part of your journey of coming to trust your own truth.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
boy, how do we do that in this world where it's kind of the opposite, right?
Yeah.
do as they say, like whoever they are,
Yeah.
whatever arrangement, that's what we have programmed to do. So for many of us, we have really lost touch of our original um, embodied truth. We have turned away from it. Uh, I think it's really helpful to be around people who have embodied it more. It's almost
Hmm.
like we need some kind of permission to listen to ourselves and to learn to trust it and act on it. And that can be very difficult if everybody around you is doing the opposite. So it takes a lot of courage, I think.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
blessedly, we start meeting others where they are also either living it or trying to live it. And then it is more like it's being normalized more. And I think that's the word that I really appreciate in this day and age, that we need to learn to normalize to be ourselves. It sounds so crazy.
Why isn't that normal? Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. But it isn't. It isn't. I mean, and it's
it,
everything about our culture is trying to conform and trying to be better, or it's so natural to go that way that it does sort of, it takes a real act of intention to choose to be yourself. So it sounds like you did have other people who were showing you that that was possible.
when I came to this spiritual teacher in America who was a student of Joel, that was not necessarily the focus. It was still very much, God and not so much the emotional healing that I don't think I really started that till I started my training as a Hakomi therapist. That's because that is so about embodiment, and listening to all the signs and the feelings, the nudges, the body. And I realized how far I still was from that. And I would also say, I think that's when I started realizing how I had left myself back in Denmark. And then it was so that's when I really started feeling that mirroring back, that it was okay to be me, that I it's that would and they would also mirror back things about me that I wasn't even really aware of myself, but mirrored back in a way without judgment and where it's safe. Then I could actually feel it in myself and be okay with it. Right? I wasn't walking around on my own, doubting and wondering, I better not. But somebody actually confirmed that in a loving way. That was such a realization of like, wow, we really need to see each other at the core, and every little part that is covering who we truly are needs to be met with kindness, with safety, with love, so we can learn to do that ourselves. So we are mirrors and models for each other. And luckily, there's a lot more who are learning that today than when I started.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know that much about Hakomi therapy. Does it have spiritual roots?
Yeah,
What's its origin?
yeah. The founder, Ron Kurtz, he had a very deep Tibetan Buddhist ground, foundation. And a lot of the principles are in there, like it's built on several principles. One is nonviolence,
Hmm.
the mind body connection. And I can't remember loving presence, big part of it. Mindfulness, I mean, that's certain very Buddhist, and trusting the natural unfolding, made a little bit. So yeah, it is definitely, and it's also built on some of the I think maybe the Hopi Indians. There
Mm.
was something about that. The word Hakomi means who am I in relation to my environment, basically. So it comes back to who am I? Who am I? When this happens, when that happens,
Hmm.
who am I? Can I stay here and be present with it, be mindful with it in a way where I'm not being pulled away from myself anymore? So it's very much about the I am and waking up. They're not using the words waking up, but to me, it's very
Mhm.
about that.
Well, trusting the divine, trusting the unfolding. I guess that immediately awakes in me this idea of providence, of something is occurring in all of us, and I mean that's the heart of my faith or my spirituality. And it's interesting that your experience with Joel Goldsmith. I mean, certainly he was embodying something powerful and enough that he could write a book that could then transmit this incredible wisdom to you. And we do still have this tendency when we gather around words like God, want to transcend the body. We want to move past it a little bit. So you were really drawn to go deeper into the body. And I feel like you hold that tension in a way that many can learn from, because even when you make this motion, I can see how you're articulating some that's almost the transcendent um, orientation, but then there's this willingness to be totally with whatever is here while staying here. Um, that's a very subtle distinction, but it feels very important, very
Yeah.
vital.
No, most spiritual traditions have not really talked about the embodiment. I think it's been much more male oriented, as I'm sure we all agree with now. And so that was more a transcendence of it and getting away from
Yeah. Yeah.
many men who have been in spiritual traditions. I was with many other spiritual teachers over the years,
Hmm.
and it felt like it was more about transcending. And the men who transcendence, they were very hard to reach, and their heart was not involved at all. Many times, everyone. But I think bringing in the feminine has been so strong for so many years now. And it's just a slow process of, again, we are up against this, eons of years, so many years of, transcendence and male. And so, again, for the woman to find her own and start trusting that, I think we need to be around women or men who have embodied it, where to have that confirmation. And I really
Yeah.
think most of us have, all of us have missed that. And that's why it's been so scary for us. And also, as we look back, women have not been honored in their spirituality or in their witchness, in deeper wisdom. It is changing. And the
Mhm.
times we're in right now, especially right now, I think we are in such a huge transformation of energies and just where the feminine is really, really coming in. And it gives us an opportunity to practice it more because you can't really ignore it anymore, right?
We can't. And it's interesting in my Swedenborgian understanding, women are often the feminine is the embodied, the body, and the masculine. And I always was kind of negative about that, like that it was, saying the men are better because
Yeah.
transcendent is better than the body. But if you can take away the better and worse part of it, there is something about this moment and embodiment that does feel deeply feminine, and it's so real, it's so lived, and it is so much what our planet needs. How can we be here together in this life we've been given? Maybe we'll spin off the planet after we die and have some other adventure, and that'll be great. But now we're here, and what is this moment right now to be here for you?
Lately, it's really, it feels the stillness is such a strong pull for me. And I mean, it feels like the energies are so strong that it's almost like it wants to give birth to the fullness of itself. And the way I experience it is I really want to be in the birth canal. I want to be present here in the stillness, in my presence, to make myself available for this. And if I was hanging out, outside of myself, which I'm not denying. I mean, I feel very tuned in to the field around me also, but it feels like it is coming from the core. The heart has a lot to do with it too, that love. So if I leave my body, then I'm kind of also leaving the portal for the new frequencies to embody themselves in a new way. It's like the old paradigm I think, has come to the end, and the new is coming in. So that is very alive in me, and I feel there's nothing more important for those who are tuned into this to really take time to go inside. And I know these times with the holidays, of course, there's all the socializing. It's fine, but take out time to it's like make yourself available for the divine to come through, whatever that means to you and me, but make ourselves available. It feels like an open prayer, not knowing what it means, but knowing that it's important, right? It's living in that mystery of the unknown.
Mhm.
When we can learn to trust our inner, we don't need to know what it means, where it's going to go, but the pull is so real and tangible that I I don't have a choice but to go there a lot every day and just make myself available and then see what happens. And it just feels so alive what's happening. I don't know. Are you sensing that too?
I am sensing a lot of chaotic energy
Yeah.
in my body,
Yeah.
which probably means I need to go into the birth canal and be more in the stillness. I think this is also new to me that my body is still acclimating to even sensing itself. Like I'm only like a few years into like even being able to identify what it feels like to be in my body. So I am sensing a lot of energy, and I love your witness of the importance of being attentive and available. I like that word, to being available for what God wants. That feels so right to me. I was just on a call before this with some colleagues of mine in the church, and they're sharing their different experiences, and all of them are chaotic. Like nobody knows what's going on. Nobody has like, here's the solution or this is the right. They're all doing beautiful things, but they're just, I think all of us need to be available. We need to be open because whatever's coming is going to be very different from what was. Um, and I'm probably feeling this chaotic energy because that whole initiative is still slightly uncomfortable to me. There's still a big part of me that feels like I could sort it out or I could find the solution or I better get going because it's up to me to make something happen. I'm still finding space from that energy, but that availability. What helps you to? What does it mean to go in the birth canal, Pernilla? What does that feel like, or what are some paths inward that you might share?
Well, I think the honest answer is I don't know.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's just I don't know. I just feel that this is so important right now, and
Yeah.
and there's nothing else I want. You know, it
Yeah.
it just so I want to just add to this, when I had that big light event coming in and that
Mhm.
light comes in and everything that's unlike light comes out to the surface to be purified, right? And
Yes.
I think we're all going through that right now. I mean, everybody. And I shared on my YouTube channel the other day that I'd listened to these very wise women who have who really have having a big service in the world. They were all talking about how, at night there's all these, these crazy, these thoughts. And I'm having the same, like, it's like relentless. It's
Mm,
helpful to hear these women
mm.
confirm that. It's like, okay, this is purification. Sometimes I forget, like, what is going
Yeah.
on, right? So
Hmm. So this chaotic energy may be just a part of the purification.
it could be, but again, we have to kind of feel that in ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it actually is. Yes, it is purification if we allow ourselves to let ourselves be purified and maybe resist or say no to the tendency to go back to the old and try and fix it. Because what I sensed to the other day, it's like what's coming up to be purified. If we just sit here, yes, 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 go, you're free. Then we are not engaging in the stuff that's coming up, because when we go in with the ways of the old paradigm to fix it Thou change it, right? We are not just sitting there. We are still giving our energy to it. And I think that's an important piece to understand, that we do feed what we don't want. We are feeding it until we come to a place where we've had enough. That has always been when something changes for me. It's like you work on it, you do all the things. And then one day it was like, I've had enough. I just don't want to do it anymore. And it's very strong. And it's like it's outlived itself. It's
Hmm.
received the energy from me to have that expression, and like, okay, we're done. And then things change every time because it's done. I do not feed it anymore. And I don't think you can fast forward that experience. It just comes
Yeah.
when you really have had enough of it. Because also what we do here in life, how we express and create our life, is because we want to have an experience supposedly separate from the divine, because that's the game we're playing here. So there is something in us that does want these experiences, and that's why they're not going to go away until we are done.
Right. Right.
So it comes.
Well, and that's such a, when you were sharing that, the first thought that came into mind, and sometimes within religious practice or community, there are rules about what we're not going to do or what we're going to do. And so sometimes there's a desire to be done before we're really done, right? And we want to say, oh, I'm done with that. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And it can create such a polarity inside of, part of you is not, forcing yourself not to do something. Part of you wants to do the thing. And then it creates so much hypocrisy. And I'm really feeling the power of that of really loving yourself, really listening, really allowing, and letting things run its course, letting the life that we're called to live run its course. And when we're done, then we're really done, really can let go, and we really can move in a new direction.
And the letting go is just effortless. It's almost like it's just slipping off, right? Let
Yeah.
me share a little example from when I was taking the Hakomi training many years ago, and with Ron Kurtz, I had supervision in our group. And he shared a story where this woman came to him as a therapist, and she wanted to lose weight, and she had not been able to lose weight. So Ron says to her, I want to talk to the part that doesn't want to lose weight. You get it right. And that has always stayed with me, because we come and we want to change, but we are not honoring the part that doesn't want to change. There is still something missing for that part to feel safe, whatever it is. When
Yeah.
that is heard and honored and given space, then change is much more possible. It's going to be easier because you're not fighting yourself. No, I want this, but this one always wins. Until, because
Yes.
this is just not weak, it's still weak, right? It's not, it's like a little sprout. It wants this, but this one is so strong because it's been running the show. So we need to help this one stuff there and this one to go.
It does feel like love l- allows all of that to happen. There's this embrace that can happen that just lets it all be. Um, and Helen Keller has a great quote that, like, nature gives away its secrets to those who love it. So it's like when we love, we actually can see more clearly because we can allow it to be what it is. We're not in judgment and manage it all. Oh, it's a lot. I mean, I went off to seminary to be a minister and do church, and it just all seems sort of manageable. And the more I go along this journey, it's just like spirituality is it's everything. I mean, it's our bodies, it's our minds, it's our hearts, it's how we live moment to moment, it's our relationships. And on one level, I think my trust in providence, or my trust in the flow of life, is way stronger. So I have much less sense that I have to manage any of it. And there is this powerful invitation to allow all of it and to embody all of it. And that part is there's still a little part of me that's a little overwhelmed by all. And what's my role in it? And I suppose from what you've shared already, and my role is just to love my life, to just, what would you say? And maybe everybody's role is different. What's your role in life?
Well,
Maybe you could answer that
when you
question
say,
at least.
what is my role, right? And that
Yeah,
most
yeah,
people's question, right? We all want to
yeah,
be, servants of the divine in whatever way.
right.
It's a longing, right? That I
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about the longing. To me, the longing is
yeah.
God speaking directly to me, and we have learned to ignore that. But so, what is our calling? What is our purpose? What would you love it to be?
Mhm.
What would you love it to be? What would make you so happy where you go like, "Oh my god, I'm so grateful, that this I'm here to do this." Many are probably not in touch with that, but
Mhm.
I think you are because you're very tuned in. So it's the question.
I'm finding my way. Yeah. And I do feel like love is the most important thing, right? So it's got to be something I love. I don't think I'm here to just do drudgery. Like, I must be here to love my life, and to love whatever, and to be available. It does feel like right now that availability. And even when I think about just walking down the street or the way we all live, like, we're so unavailable
Yes.
to each other. Like, we're so busy doing whatever it is we're doing. And just how different the world would be if we were all available, and not available like it sounds like you were with this gentleman who you invited into your home when you didn't want to, but available in a way where we know our boundaries, but we also have resources to connect and to give, as we're that feels to me very vital right now. How to be available, but not too like, be available to ourselves as well, and available to God, which requires so much solitude and quiet and silence. Curious about that whole mix of availability. How's your balance of togetherness and solitude and time with God and time for Pernilla? How's that balance in your day-to-day life?
Well, I guess
Does it feel like a flow?
yeah, but the flow, I have a very strong hermit in me and gotten much stronger over the years to the point sometimes where I'm like, there's like, what's wrong with me? But I know there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that the pull is so strong. And I have some friends where it's just the presence is just there. And when I'm with friends who are much more, alive and extrovert, it really wears me out. It's
Yeah.
it's like I don't know they talk, 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 and I know if I wanna talk to them, then I have to push through that, and I did that for many years, and I stopped, and so I don't say a whole lot depending on who I'm with, and then I'm like, "Well, why am I really here?" So I had a tendency,
Mhm.
if I'm at some gatherings to say, "Okay, um, my bandwidth is up. I have to go home now," or something. I'll just sit quietly if they're just talking, talking. But it's not nourishing for me. Much rather be home with my cat
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I really, really appreciate just being on my own. And then being with friends where I really feel we are so kind of like I went for dinner with a friend yesterday and we have this deep, solid meeting in the truth.
Mhm.
So satisfying, right? It's so satisfying. Yeah, the balance is probably out of balance in my in my life.
Well, it may be for your lifespan, but
Yeah.
in terms of,
Yeah.
I think that I appreciate your honesty, because it feels like there are a lot of people who are choosing exactly what you're choosing, that this solid. And I think I've been certainly in a time of solitude, because there isn't a desire to connect anymore on the superficial level. And I think it's one of my questions in the work I'm doing, because I'm really trying to make space for us to come together on this deeper level. But I think a lot of people are like, who are in your shoes, like, am I really going to feel safe in that environment, or is it going to drain me? There's sort of a real sort of suspicion or question about getting more involved in community, because everyone's on this deep inner journey. And so to really honor that with my efforts to create this community, that the people I really want to talk to probably don't really want to talk to anybody. They're content being by themselves. And so to sort of honor that balance is very real right now. as we make this shift.
Yeah, it's a real shift, isn't it? It really feels to me like
Mhm.
there's two ways to go. There's millions, of course, but there seems to be a tendency to really move towards presence and stillness and the newer embodiment. And then, fighting the world, getting entertained by the world, whatever it is. And I think
Mhm.
it is very tangible right now. That's why it's really important to stay in that. So it's almost like that we are being taken. That's what it feels like. We need to let ourselves be taken into the new earth. I think you call it the New Jerusalem, right? Is that yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's very important to really be available for that because it's going to be easier. We can still be hanging out. So it may take a little longer, but I feel that's here, the frequencies. The more we make ourselves available or grace prone. Grace prone was
Mm.
something I heard many years ago in the early days of my spirituality. Make your grace prone. It's like, yeah, yeah. It's all by grace anyway.
Yes, it is about grace. And I loved your story of the book coming through some circuitous means to get, so it's grace, and it was a book with pages that somebody printed up and published. And so it's such a mix of trusting that flow and doing these actions when we feel called to create something tangible in the world. Do you ever find any tension between those two? The the tangible actions and the trusting in the flow
Yeah,
of life.
yeah, very much. For many years, not so much now because I let it go too. I really have felt more like mm, live my life. I belong to you. I don't know what. I have no idea. I know nothing.
Yeah.
know. And it's taken me a while to let that Pernilla, who knew everything, who
Yeah.
was a doer, and
Mhm.
yeah, that's been a big challenge. It's
Mhm.
how it always looked. It's 5, 6, 7 years ago where I was in this marketing, 1 year marketing for coaches, to learn how to put your work out there and yada yada. So I was
Yeah.
all these things, lots of money. These 1 year they're really expensive and they're really good. And then one day during one of the coaching calls, the coach was wonderful. I loved her. She was saying, "You need to send more emails. You need to do. You may have heard this before." And something in me, uh, it's just like, oh my God, I can't do that. And those are the moments, right? It's like, and I quit the program 4 months before it was over.
Mhm.
I literally, I would have gone against my own grain. And
Yeah.
so I stopped and then had to go through that whole doer, have to do something. It still wants to get my attention, this doer, because we live in that frequency of
Mhm.
raining.
Yeah.
But again, I have no interest in it. It has to come from within. If that means I lose everything, then so be it. I mean, I have
Mhm.
come to that place because otherwise I would keep jumping out. Pernilla would just fail harder.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I was like, what are you doing?
It's good to laugh at our doer
Yeah.
selves. Yes, because they do try so hard and they're very earnest, and yeah. But there just comes a time when it's just not what you want anymore. And I love the way you describe that choice, the clarity of those choices. And maybe that's another part of the challenges of change is it's a real letting go. It's a real letting go of a way of being that you did maybe like a little bit, and I think I'm reflecting on that a lot. We talk about spiritual growth, we talk about being reborn, and we want regeneration and all these things. But maybe there's a part of us that thinks we can have all of that without grief or without letting go. How does grief show up for you in your journey?
I don't experience it a lot, but I remember there was something that happened about 5 years ago, I think, where um, my crypto wallet, actually, I had a few of them, and I was doing pretty good. I got hacked. So basically, all my crypto that I was planning to maybe have as a little cushion as I was
Mhm.
aging, gone. Most of it was gone. And I could just had my wallet open. I could see it happening. It just zero, 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 zero. I was like, what? It was really scary. I couldn't do anything. And then the tech support that I was with suddenly disappeared. Like poof, gone. So it was a total scam thing. And I fell for it. I must own that. Anyway, so that night I didn't sleep all that well, obviously. And the next morning I woke up with this immense grief. I was curious, like, what is this grief here? So the first thing that came up was like, it was actually shock, shock. I didn't see it coming. It was like, I didn't see it coming. So then I do something, I do the tapping, the EFT. So I tap on that. I didn't see it coming. It was a shock. And that energy moved. So the next layer was, it really happened. It was like a reality check. It really happened. Shock. That moved. And then the lowest layer, the deeper layer was, I had put my faith outside of myself. I had put my trust in finances, in survival out there. And I cannot even tell you the grief that I felt. I was wailing, 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 wailing. And it was so painful to really realize that I had done that. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have faith in anything, but it was like, it was there. And I could see why this stuff had to go in that way. So I could really let go on a deeper level. And when I was in the depth of that grief, which is what usually happens when you go into these deeper emotions and really go there willingly, consciously, well, maybe not willingly, but consciously, right? And go there and stay there. There is a gift in there. There is something that is to be received, right? So mine was this like, and again, there it is again. I don't want to do that again. I do not want to turn away from God and believe that something outside of me is going to be my safety net or whatever. And that shifted. The grief went literally to gratitude, believe it or not. I mean, it's insane, right?
Yeah.
But it just happened because I was able, I was going to say willing. I don't have a choice really anymore.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is a gift. I want to be free. I want to live from the divine. I don't
Yeah.
want to put my faith outside anymore. That doesn't mean I don't do it sometimes, but it was just a real deep letting go. And I was really grateful that it had happened. I would also be grateful if that came back to me, that those cryptos, that would be all right too, you know what I mean? But there was something really beautiful about it, and it shifted everything. I didn't walk around with fear. I get chills when I say that. I just walked around. Okay, well then you have to show me because I don't know. I tried my best, but I
You
didn't.
did your best. Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
like that story. And you just brought it up again. You've named this a couple times, and this came up in an interview I did last week. Like, I don't have a choice anymore. And I actually find that very moving. It's part of what gives me confidence that the new earth can come into being, that as we grow and in our alignment, we stop really having a choice we don't have the choice to abandon ourselves anymore. We don't, that's not even on the table. And it's really what gives me confidence that we could live in peace together, because there's this spiritual freedom that is beyond choice. It's beyond good and evil, or free will. Even it's just this deep surrender and alignment to who you are. And I've heard a couple people mention it, and it's a little, I imagine to some people they won't like to hear that I don't have a choice, but I like hearing that. That comforts me, because it's it's this new state of, I must honor God, I must honor myself, and I don't have a choice. Is that how you experience it, or how you understand it? Choicelessness of this state?
absolutely. And it's the best thing that can happen, It really, because it's as long as we are identified with this separate sense of self, which we're born into that. There's no way
Yeah.
of avoiding it. There's no reason to be afraid or ashamed of it. We are born into this programmed nonsense, and then it's it's like a maze, we need to find our way out of it. And there's all these dead ends with shame and doubt and not, it's like, nope, not it. Right? And eventually you come out and then you can look back and it's like, what was that? Who was that? That's not who I am. So when you come out of that and you're you're more here, then it just looks like a bunch of nonsense. And it's just so liberating to not want that anymore. I mean, I talk about the longing, right? I long for the peace, for the divine connection, for the oneness with myself and everything around me. I don't long for the maze. I don't want. I'm done with that, and that's where that is a choice. That is a choice, right? Well, we have free will. We can keep choosing the old paradigm, the matrix. We can keep choosing that. We have free will. But for me, it's been like my will and divine will, or thy will and my will, when they align is when I only want that and let it live me, and then learning to trust it. That doesn't happen overnight. I wish it did.
Yeah, sure. Well, learning to trust it in its unfolding as you bumble along and as you.
Yeah. And what do we trust? I mean, what do we hold on to when there's nothing to hold on to? To me, it's the longing, the feeling of I am, the field around me, which I love to just connect with. That I trust, and it's not for the five senses, right? It's the soul sense that guides us. And it's learning to let go of the five senses and drop into the soul sense or the sixth sense, whatever we want to call it. That's the heart. And then learn to listen and trust that. It's a journey.
It is a journey. It is a journey. And you can't rush it. You can't skip over it. But you can trust it. You can trust it. And I so appreciate all the ways you share your journey with me and with so many others, Pernilla. You're shining a light on this journey that we're all in.
Thank you, Sage. I really want to also acknowledge that in you. They say it takes one to know one. And you are definitely bringing this light to whatever you're bringing to the planet. So
whatever path I love the most, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's where we shine the brightest. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we both are